can be many causes for back pain, and when it comes to spinal issues, you don't want to mess around. Ryan Smith from Tulsa Spine and Rehab joins us today. Ryan, what makes spinal muscles unique when it comes to treatment?
You know, we see a lot of back pain here at Tulsa Spine and Rehab, and there's a variety of reasons why somebody may have that. But usually one of the constants that we'll see, depending, no matter what the injury is, a herniated disc, an annular tear, a muscle sprain, strain, whatever it might be, is that people have spinal weakness. So the deep spinal muscles that are in your back get weak over time. Maybe you sit too much, maybe you've injured yourself and you've never got a chance to get those guys reactivated again. And there's a lot of information out there in the press about how to make your core stronger. I think that's what we all hear. As people are doing sit-ups and they're doing crunches and they're doing CrossFit, and they're doing all kinds of things. But most of the time when you have back pain, most of those things are way, way too hard. And so there's some really interesting and cool new neurophysiology information that's coming out related to how our spine works and how you reactivate a lot of those deep spinal stabilizers, because they have some pretty unique properties to them.
What are some signs that a person's dealing with a spinal muscle problem?
Well, a lot of times you'll see that when somebody sits for a long period of time, you'll notice that their back begins to burn, or they get tight. They feel tired. They feel like they need to lean forward and put their hands on their knees. You may notice when you're at a party, standing for an extended period of time, you get uncomfortable, kind of shifting side to side. Or let's say you're brushing your teeth, or you have to bend over to pick something up a little bit, and you're like, "Whew, man, I feel a little timid to do that." More than likely, your spinal muscles are not working like they're supposed to. And when you think about your spine, it's a stacked column of vertebrae and disc. So there's bones, and then there's like an airbag, which is what we think of with that disc, bone, disc, so on and so forth. And those are the primary stabilizers in your spine. So meaning that's the main thing that holds you upright. The secondary stabilizers in your spine are called your spinal muscles, and there's several deep ones in there. They've got some funny technical names, your multifidus and your rotators. But the way that those guys are wired is really interesting. So if I say to you, "Hey, Scott, I want you to flex your bicep muscle for me," you can do that. But if I said, "Hey, I want you to fire your back muscles for me," you're going to have a really hard time doing that. And the reason is because the way those guys are wired in your brain, you don't have direct conscious control of them. So the only way that you can get your deep spinal muscles to fire is we've got to use another set to make them work. So there's the deepest layer of your abdominal wall is called your transverse abdominis. Again, some geeky words, but just think your abdomen, but the deepest layer in your abdominal wall. Once you learn how to fire that guy properly, which we have a variety of techniques that we use in here to help people understand they're doing that properly, there's a reflex that then makes your deep spinal stabilizing muscles come on, which is really cool. So the mistake people make is that they're doing a lot of, quote, core drills, but they're activating the wrong muscles. And so you've got to come in and learn the basics, and whether it be with us or whomever that might be, but get with an expert that understands how to help you turn on your deep spinal muscles and how to do that safely. Because a lot of the classic drills people do, they end up putting way too much pressure on either the joints in their spine or the disc in their spine, and they actually end up with more pain.
So is it just a matter of, you referenced spinal weakness. Is it just a matter of doing the proper exercises and you can be able to avoid this?
Yeah, well, most of the time what happens is the spinal weakness that we see when we tease out somebody's history, what's happened is they've had an injury somewhere along the way. So maybe they had a day where they had a crick in their back, or they lifted too much or sat too much, and they were like, "Man, I couldn't get out of bed. I was super sore." And what happens is after that event, they never get those muscles reactivated or turned back on again. So your body, it's like a light switch is the way I like how to explain it to people. And all of your muscles are electrically wired. And what happens after an injury is that you want to get that light switch to come all the way back on those muscles that surround that joint that you injured. And most of the time people don't. So what happens is over time they use that muscle less and less and less. And they end up with a spine that's really very weak, and you can't lift things and you can't bend over and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the easiest drills to help prevent this from happening, so let's say that you're well and you haven't had a lot of problems and you want to avoid it, is a plank. And so a plank is a position where you get on your stomach and you get on your forearms and your toes. And in that position, you want to keep your body in a nice straight line. and you want to feel your abdominal wall get tight. You want to pull your belly button up to the sky. And the standard on that is you should be able to do that for 2 minutes. Hold that position. And that's a great self-test for you if you have spinal weakness, is if you can't get in a plank position to hold that for 2 minutes.
And I know we've talked to Dr. Riley before. He's not a big fan, and you've referenced this as well. I mean, like traditional sit-ups and things like that, you might do more harm than good, right?
Yeah, and the reason being is that when you do sit-ups and crunches, is there's a lot of what's called compressive load on the disc itself, which is that airbag in between your vertebrae. So you got to be really careful with that stuff. I mean, certainly there's a place for sit-ups and crunches, but most people don't have, and certainly if you have a history of back pain, don't have enough capacity to do those drills. And so what ends up happening is we see a lot of people who end up herniating their disc and hurting themselves in other ways doing those higher intensity exercises. So a plank drill keeps your spine still, and it is a very low risk, but it's very challenging.
A well-rounded approach is recommended when it comes to back pain, whether you need physical therapy, chiropractic care, or perhaps some guidance on exercising properly. The team at Tulsa Spine and Rehab can help. Give them a call today, 918-743-3737.